going to sound woo-woo. Of course it's going to sound woo-woo, but you are in concert with your 7 trillion cells, or however it is. And when you quieten down your entire environment, including outside stimulation, and outside stimulation is anything outside of what's going on in your body. When you do that, you start providing the opportunity for your body to speak to you. And what will happen is thoughts will just occur to you. You'll suddenly, exactly like your ear candling, you'll be like, why don't I try this? And you'll be like, where'd that come from? Mm-hmm. I mean, we haven't done ear candling for 10 years. I had to go rummaging looking for those ear candles. I do love an ear candle because it turns a human into a birthday cake with one match, which is just an absolute delight. Makes me so happy.
Excellent.
Anyway, well, you know, birthdays are kind of festive.
Explains why I could hear you singing in the background while it was bubbling away.
Excuse for a song. Hello, Quanta folks, and welcome to another episode of Fuck the Shoulds podcast. I am QuantiMama Jodi.
And I'm QuantiPapa McGill.
Yes, you are. Hello.
Hello, darling.
Hello, gorgeous.
Welcome back.
Thank you so much. Well, I feel like I'm here most fortnights, to be honest. It's just you that sort of flutters in and out like a little butterfly.
That's true. Well, welcome back to me then.
Well, that's exactly right. And the butterfly is a beautiful analogy because today we're talking about our ability to self-heal, the wondrous thing that is our body. And the butterfly very much, shows that transformation that it can look like you're, going to go through the death process when you end up in the chrysalis and you take out all the external world and you go into hibernation and then you come out fully, guns a-blazing with 2 magnificent wings that are just breathtaking to behold.
That's true. It's a good analogy, actually. I love that analogy of stepping into a chrysalis and, coming out the other side. But I guess we've done that on a slightly minor scale over the last little while because the change in the weather and the coolness that we've got has given us both the opportunity to upgrade our systems, hasn't it?
Yeah, and that is a language we use in our household. And I want to talk about the body's ability to self-heal because I think that it's something that we don't give enough stock to in our society. Like we're fast to run off to the pharmacy to get rid of any pain, which is actually just a symptom of the body being in misalignment or wanting your attention for something. And we look for, what I call fishing expeditions, but these sort of investigative processes when something's a bit off. And it's not to take away from Western medicine, but we have become so reliant on it, we've forgotten that the body actually is always looking to rectify whatever is out of alignment.
And we've forgotten to listen.
Yeah.
And that it's okay to not feel 100% every single day. Whether you look at your body as
true, yeah. We expect to feel amazing every day.
But whether you look at your body as a battery, whether you look at it as a power source, whether you look at it as a functioning, however you choose to look at your body, it's going to need time where it has breaks and cycles and where it's going to splutter along. It needs a bit of service and a bit of care and a bit of these sorts of things. And we tend to hit these little speed bumps.
Yeah. Which it really is a speed bump because it might take you out for a couple of days, but out of 365 days of the year. But we're in such an immediate world. So to bring you up to speed, and we may very well cough and splutter our way through this. So this is firstly a demonstration of our love for you Quanta folks because we're showing up here feeling a little bit shite, aren't we? I'm feeling quite shite.
Yeah, I'm not too bad. I'm sort of
okay.
The worst of it. But yeah, it was a challenging week last week for both of us.
Well, it's just been a week of winter in the sense of where you jump yourself down, you put on extra layers, you get an extra hot water bottle, you maybe watch a little bit more Netflix than you were doing beforehand. You let the kids run amok a little bit more,
Yeah.
so that kind of thing where you just, yeah, you cocoon yourself exactly just as the caterpillar does to then blossom into the butterfly. And so it's that kind of thing. And I think that this time round, well, I definitely had this worked out at the start of last week where I really went down like a sack of spuds. My energy level was, I reckon, about 20%. I just had nothing and I just could not get myself out of bed except for the toilet because there are lines that I won't cross.
Excellent.
Good to know.
Good to know. Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
that's right. So, but I felt really tanked. And what I did in those days was I literally said to my body, I said to my, etheric field or my energy field, cool, you know what? I hear you and I am just doing exactly what you need. I am in complete surrender. I am going to bed. I didn't do any of that bullshit soldier on stuff that I think particularly we were indoctrinated with all the way through our upbringing.
And it's funny because as we get into this, I probably did the contrast of that because I did do the soldier on to some degree where I still went to work and still did bits and pieces, even though I sort of felt pretty average. This is going to be an interesting discussion.
Well, to be honest, I think there's a couple of things, and you may disagree with me, but one, if we go back to say you won't publicly disagree with me because you like being married, but I think one of the things that comes into it, and feel free to correct me if you think I'm off task here, but when you look at our human designs, I always forget, you're a manifestor or a generator. You're one of them.
Okay.
I think it's a generator. And a generator, like, just tends to focus, has a great deal of focus, likes to see through a task all the way through.
Does
So
not sound like me.
it doesn't sound like you at all. You are such a grumpy shit if you don't get a job done that you have earmarked for that day, right? Whereas I am a man gen. So a manifesting generator is the juggler. Like they're the fire starter. So they basically have a million things going on at once. And my sneaking suspicion is that part of your, I guess, your personality type, shall we say, not that I want to pigeonhole you, but we'll call it a characteristic, is that because you are that certain type of human design where you do really focus on, that one
Yes.
task.
Yep.
And so last week when you started feeling your upgrade coming on, because we don't say we're sick, we say we're upgrading, right? When your upgrade was coming on, you were focused on work.
I was, yes.
And you had this thing where you said, no, I'll save my sick days when I'm really sick. And so I thought that was an interesting mindset anyway, right? But it's underpinned by the fact that your body's doing what it needs to do.
It
So
is.
you laid off the sugar, I'm assuming, for a couple of days. You didn't feed the monster.
Still haven't started back on sugar.
Yeah, right. And you fasted a bit more too.
I did. Yep.
Yeah. So these are all things that might be massive concepts to people because the idea that you can starve out, say, a viral infection. And I have to say, I'm a believer of the terrain theory and its frequency. I don't believe that. We already know viruses are not contagious, right? That's been known for a while. There's still lots of gaslighting in society that tells you that a virus is contagious, and I would see people who are upgrading themselves and be like, "Oh no, stay away," I'm crook, and I'm like, "No, it's frequency." My immune system frequency is strong enough right now. I could lick your face and I won't pick up the virus. I mean, you like the idea of that. Randos in the street, probably not so.
Yeah, it might be a bit confronting for them.
Yeah, I got to buy them dinner at least first. So my sneaking suspicion is if I circle back to that point I was making a million years ago, was that because I am the juggler and I have there's a substantial amount of energy for me that goes towards the juggler of having all those balls in the air. Whether that's, work, all the QM stuff that I'm wanting to do and are doing placentas, looking after the kids, making sure that we don't turn them into criminals too soon, making sure that we have enough food, making sure that this and that,
Just
everything else is
how
done.
life functions on a day-to-day basis.
All the
And it
stuff.
doesn't if the juggler drops the balls.
That's right. So the juggler needs to hold on to at least 50% of the balls. And so I think that now I've worked out, the body has told me, hey, if you trust me to self-heal, then you need to listen to me when I say, get into bed and rest and just take out the extra workload. And I am so comfortable with that now. And I suspect that that is a massive difficulty for lots of mums out there, particularly because I think that women think they need to, or they know they're imperative. When they're the primary caretaker of the kids,
Yep.
they are an imperative part of the functionality of the family, are they not?
Well, they're at the coalface. If they're not doing it, it's not getting done.
Yeah.
In many cases. And I mean,
Except.
Ooh.
Well, the exception is, and I shared this on Insta the other day. Excuse me. I was sharing on Insta the other day and I was looking completely shite the other day too. So thank you, Quanta folks, for loving me unconditionally. That taking me out of the picture for those 2 days and you're at work, one of the things that I observed was that the kids, and I know they've done this before, so I actually have had experience with this, but they have a significant amount of capacity that I think most people don't afford their kids.
They don't necessarily get the opportunity, but
That's what I'm saying.
Keep your thought flow going.
So what I was sharing the other day was that I was feeling sick as shit. I literally just, it wouldn't have mattered what was going on. I mean, maybe if they had, if there was one of the children unconscious or bleeding to death, I probably would have got out of bed. But otherwise, there was very little motivation for me to move from my, current situation. And the kids just, they went above and beyond because they did things like they popped in and they said, how you going, Mum? Do you need anything? Is there anything I can get for you? And then the next layer of deprogramming that was happening for me was to accept all those. Initially I'd go, no, I'm fine. Thanks, darling, for checking in. And then I'd go, you know what? I would love a cup of tea, please. And they'd go and make me a cup of tea. Sometimes right, sometimes a little bit skewy, but that's okay. Like the love was there. But the point was that I wasn't having to call out to them at all. They literally kept coming in, all of them, all at different times. Like they staggered it beautifully and they just kept offering to do stuff for me, And even if I said no, I'd be like, what about your hot water bottles, Mum? Do you need another hot water bottle? And I'm like, actually, I do. Thanks so much. So what I loved about that was they have capacity. Now, most of the time, kids, we don't say all kids, but we'll definitely say 50% of our children are experts at shirking responsibilities. Like they are the great, what do you call them? The ones that share out the workload. So
So they're very good directors.
they are very good directors. They're very good at holding the clipboard with the pen.
And looking busy.
But getting everyone else to do their bidding for them. That's what I see in them, right? And I go, okay, they're going to make fantastic adults. They're very annoying as contributing members to the family community right now. But that's okay. So we've got two that are very much of service. And so we try not to abuse that.
Mm-hmm.
And then we've got two that are very good at, the word escapes me. This is the problem with being cloudy, isn't it? All right, Quanta folks, you work that one out. So it starts with D.
Let's come back to so this assistance, extra care, stepping up of the children. How did that go? Did that allow you to surrender to this process that your body had decided it was going to go through?
Absolutely. So much. I mean, I did 2 full days and I could just, even though it was uncomfortable, excuse me, even though it was uncomfortable, I was really grateful for the surrender. And I didn't have any sense that there was anything lost. Everything was happening perfectly. And I think that's the power of calling it an upgrade, right? Because People really concentrate on telling others about how awful they feel and how it's the worst thing ever. It was a really interesting thing that used to happen in ambulance. I always remember we went to this old duck. She must have been, I don't know, like 75 years old. And we went to her for gastro, right? So this is back when I was a paramedic and, we got called for all sorts of things. So going to someone for gastro wasn't too incredible. Anyway, we roll in and, it's reasonable to be concerned about an older person with gastro because there's a whole fluid thing, electrolytes, and there's, a whole lot of stuff from a body sense of what's going on. But the interesting thing was I said to this woman who was talking full sentences, right, but feeling really queasy, she said, oh, this is the worst experience I've ever had. Like, I just, I can't even tell you how awful it is. Full sentences, looking nice and pink in the skin, like not the picture of near death at all. And I said to her, how remarkable to get to 75 and this is the worst you've ever felt.
Oh my goodness.
I mean, I actually had enough charm to get away with it, right? But my point was, it just was like, you know how the best war story wins in our community?
Yep.
We know that in birth. You have the most awful birth, you get the medal. I remember that from mother's group and stuff, and I never understood it. It was like a pissing contest for horror stories. But what was interesting in that was that you didn't feel like you had an avenue to say, well, I actually feel great, or I actually had a great birth, or you couldn't do a contrary thing. But more than that now is to actually say, oh, no, the body's remarkable. It's just doing its thing. Because everyone feels this distress about feeling uncomfortable. We've become unconditioned to discomfort.
And we don't want it. We've decided that there's a way around it.
Yeah.
So we just do it. So let's get back to you. So it sounds like when you're laying there and you've decided, yep, I'm just going to surrender into this process. What was your mindset when you made that choice to just go, you know what, I'm undergoing an upgrade. It's going to be what it's going to be. I'm just going to switch off. I'm not going to be the juggler today.
Well, there was a couple of things. Firstly, being crunchy like we are, we don't do pharmaceuticals unless we absolutely need to. Like when I dislocated my shoulder, I was very happy for the pharmaceutical analgesics.
Very happy to see.
We were all very happy for me to have some analgesic at that point.
Yep.
But even before that point, I had used breath to great effect. So there are always options to augment whatever Western medicine option there is, generally speaking. Certainly in minor things like viruses, I think so. So it was really interesting because this time round, part of that surrender and really owning the idea that the body was upgrading and so therefore expressing itself in the highest form in the sense of it's burning off the shit that I don't need. And that can sometimes be beliefs that you've held on to, perhaps trapped emotions that you've held on to. Like you actually get to think quite global about how this self-healing shows up. And so I thought, okay, what does the body want? The body wants things like bone broth, right? So I got into that. I used, some essential oils just to help the passages stay open so I could breathe. But I had a crushing headache that, just it just worsened every time I sat up and moved around. And so I said, okay, what does a crushing headache need? Well, I don't want to use drugs that's going to mask it because that switches off my ability to know what's happening in my body.
Mm-hmm.
So I got really clear on that. I'm like, well, I don't need any pain relief. I just need to not do stuff that's going to accentuate that. And we use a bit of colloidal silver in our house, so we ingested a bit of that. You've got to be aware of which ones to ingest, lest you turn blue silver skin colour, but there are ones that are safe for ingestion. And silver is an extraordinary addition to your diet.
Mm.
But that was it. And I had a few people going, hey, want to try this? Want to try that? Do you want to do this? Do you want to do that? And I'm like, I don't want any of it. I didn't want any supplements. So that was what was really fascinating was I got my vitamin C from the small amount of food that I had. I got obviously the benefits of bone broth and I got a shed ton of rest and that was it. And I came out of that on Thursday, Friday, it was like there was such purity to how much better I was feeling.
Yep.
Like
And you were lit up, you were light in the face, you were back doing stuff.
my brain felt like I'd been like hyper energized. I had clarity on stuff and I'm like, people don't have this experience because they, get sick. They whinge about being sick, which is the experience they give their mind and body, right?
Mhm.
They don't actually take the time to rest when they really could. They then mask it and use a whole bunch of, whatever it is, whether they're natural supplements or pharmaceutical supplements that don't ever allow the body to fully express itself in the way that it wants to. And then they most certainly don't get that titanium feeling when you come out of it.
No, and that was the thing because you were out of it and you were doing stuff, and I was sort of looking at you going, don't you need to sort of take it easy, or what's going on over there? You're pretty full on into this again.
Well, I know, and I did feel that, and I may have just, gone a little bit too quick, as we know, because I tanked. I tanked again, didn't I?
Did.
But one thing I did was I ate some lollies. I was in the mental process of going, oh my God, I just want some sugar. And so I was like, what is the most self-sabotagey thing I could possibly do? I'll have some lollies. I mean, I never eat lollies. That's what was funny. It was really out of character for me. So
And it really surprised me, given that you'd been through, and you know that sugar feeds the monster.
absolutely.
You
I'll tell everyone else.
yeah, oh yes, up on that pulpit, darling.
I love it. I love my
But
pulpit.
you've gone through this whole thing of, okay, I don't feel well. I'm going to surrender into this. I'm going to let all this take over. I'm going to do all the nourishing things for my body.
Yeah.
I'm going to basically hibernate.
Mm.
While I'm hibernating, I'm going to fuel myself, my mind. I'm going to change my mindset because I'm an upgrade. I'm not unwell. I'm going to, and you get to the point where you're starting to feel good and you go, you know what?
Let's just try some old
Let's
programs.
just test this old body thing out a little bit and see what happens. And so what happened as a result of that, darling?
Oh, yeah, I went down like a sack of spuds again. So I've come out of it now. I had it yesterday in bed again.
Mhm.
Um, so I guess the thing is that when you get to a second pass or you have a relapse in the same upgrade, that's where the test comes in for the surrender and the self-healing belief system. Because there's a little bit of bargaining going on yesterday of just going, I'm sick of this shit. I'm ready to feel better. I've got stuff to do. And all of that projection, even into the, coming days, isn't surrender.
No,
It
well,
keeps the tension in the body, doesn't it?
yeah, it
So
does. And also it's sort of saying, well, come on, get this over and done with instead of going
yeah,
through the
yeah,
process. The
yeah,
body's going to take as long as it wishes to take.
yeah,
If you don't listen, or
yeah,
you decide partway through that going, oh, yep, I'm good, I'm fine, I'm just moving forward and do something that then maybe self-sabotages that, then the
yeah.
body's going to remind you pretty quick.
So I'm so happy to show up as an imperfect example of this stuff and how that it's not about lecturing people, it's about saying there's a pervasiveness to all of this stuff. And so, do you benefit from having a go at yourself when you have a misstep?
Hmm.
No, you don't. You don't benefit. So the loving, kind thing to my body is to go, oh, thank you for that lesson.
Yeah.
Throw out the other half packet of lollies, Jody. You're not going to eat them. And practice the surrender that you're preaching.
Interesting.
Mm. How are you feeling now? Because you did just sort of push through and you had to wait on me a little bit every time I went back to bed.
Yeah, I mean, I did make that comment that I pushed through, but I pretty much cocooned myself as I could. I was doing so we were lucky enough to have the ability for you to have the room to yourself.
Oh, yeah, I got to sleep by myself.
Yeah, and I found suddenly I was sleeping long nights, even though I had early starts. I was pretty militant on getting into bed early, and I did have that single focus of getting through my working stuff. But mine manifested, and this is something I spoke about with you, is that for me, when I get crook along these sorts of lines and these times, it's always in my throat.
Mm-hmm.
And we were examining that and we had a look at it, and, generally anything to do with your throat, you're starting to look at the fact that you're not expressing yourself or speaking your truth, and that sort of seems to be the constant theme for me, that I tend to get sick. It tends to manifest itself as a throat infection or sometimes the ears. And it's interesting about how some things help you and some things don't, because had a pretty gnarly throat. I was still going to work. I changed, obviously, my diet completely. I went down the path of going, well, I fast regularly anyway. So anytime I break a fast, I was extending them out. So I might have been 20 or 22 hours without food. I was
Yeah, so
breaking
you're
that.
saying you're eating for a 2 hour window just to get people's heads around that. That's no breakfast, no lunch. It's a bit of dinner.
Well, even then, I would sort of, if I was hungry, I had an orange or some other form of pretty high laden,
Mm,
citrusy,
mm,
vitamin C sort of packed thing
mm.
was the first thing that was going into my body. But I also had that mindset when I was peeling that orange of, this is so good for me.
Yeah.
When I was eating, I think we had, there were a few other
Mm,
bits around. So I'm still, and people go, oh, we're talking about avoiding sugar. Well, I'm talking about natural sugar here,
yeah.
where I'm ingesting the entire thing. So the fruit is giving me what body needs to deal with
Yeah.
anything that's in
Yeah.
it. Um, and so I guess I sort of struggled along a little bit of feeling average, but still being able to do everything else except for this raging sore throat. And then I noticed my ears were getting clogged, and I got you to ear candle me.
Mm.
So moving into that sort of Eastern medicine style things.
Yeah, we haven't done that for a long
Well, I haven't
time.
done, but I knew at some point in time, I just went, I need to be ear candled. I could feel whatever it was in me moving from my throat to my ears. It sort of moved it out of my nose, and I went, so I got ear candled, and I actually could physically feel. Maybe it was a physical manifestation of the thought. I could physically feel the clearing going on
Mm.
when I got ear candled, and there was a huge amount of stuff that came out.
Yeah.
Yet I ear candled you the next day,
Yeah, and it irritated my ears, my
and
eustachian tube.
yep,
Mm,
no relief for you
mm.
in that moment.
No, no. So that's, and I think that's the power of it, because I think we're in a society where we look for a magic pill, whatever that might be. Oh, sinuses are blocked up, ear candle. It's like, no, not for all people. I mean, that can actually really stress your ear canal and create a inflammation, which then adds a bit more workload to the body. So it is about starting to wean people off the magic pill um, wish that they have.
Well, it's about getting out of the body's way and just letting it heal.
Yeah, but also getting quiet enough to listen to the body. Like there'll be vegans out there who are going to go, well, bone broth is a great idea, except I don't do animal, right? So if you're vegan, then there's something else that your body will whisper to you when you quieten down enough and you tell the body, I have trust in you. I know that you know how to heal. How can I support you? And, you know, it's going to sound woo woo. Of course, it's going to sound woo woo, but you are in concert with your 7 trillion cells or however it is. And when you quieten down your entire environment, including outside stimulation, and outside stimulation is anything outside of what's going on in your body. When you do that, you start providing the opportunity for your body to speak to you. And what will happen is thoughts will just occur to you. You'll suddenly, exactly like your ear candling, you'll be like, huh, why don't I try this? And you'll be like, where'd that come from?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we haven't done ear candling for 10 years. I had to go rummaging looking for those ear candles. I do love an ear candle because it turns a human into a birthday cake with one match, which is just an absolute delight. Makes me so happy.
Excellent.
Anyway, birthdays are kind of festive and
Explains why I
fun.
could hear you singing in the background while it was bubbling away.
Excuse for a song. Yeah, so I guess what I want to say for people is firstly, if the idea that the body self heals is a massive concept for you, start with that,
Mm.
right? And then move to if the body is always looking to self heal, then what is the impact of some of these things that we put into it, right? Sugar, like as in processed sugar, is so much more worse for the body than cocaine. And I'm not suggesting everyone takes up cocaine as an alternative. I'm simply saying to get your attention, it is so much worse for the body. It down regulates all sorts of things, but one thing it does with great efficiency is it tanks your immune system. If you then move to the fact that viruses are everywhere and they are an expression of your immune system that has been down regulated. When you really comprehend that, then you realize with good practices that for the most part you won't experience too many upgrades and they won't go for too long. The body will do what it needs to do as you surrender, as you bathe it in love of saying, thank you for this upgrade, let's go. And you really just give it what it needs in that moment, which often is rest.
And look, that is, but the resting is also when you start listening to your body.
Yeah.
And that's when you start acknowledging your body. And if you don't listen, then the body just keeps, what's that beautiful saying? The universe will throw pebbles at you, and if you don't listen, it'll throw a brick.
Yeah.
The body's exactly the same thing.
Yeah, it really
It
is.
will throw these little pebbles at you going, you know what? You need an early night. You need an early night. You need
Yeah.
an early night. You know what? I'm tired. I'm going to go to bed.
Yeah.
You need an early night. Oh, no, I'm going to stay up and do this. I'm going to get up early and I'm going to push through. I'm going to do this. But goes, okay, I wanted to have an early night. Okay, well, now I'm tired. Now I'm going to make you feel foggy. Still not listening to me.
Where you make mistakes.
And then over time, the body's going to say, well, I'm going to give you a proper upgrade.
Yeah.
I'm going to
Or
make
you'll
you
get an
stop listening to me.
autoimmune illness.
So it's I guess we talk about, living in concert with nature and those sorts of things, but we are our own ecosystem in ourselves.
100%.
Those 7 trillion cells that that make us, they are guiding us the whole way. So if we look after them, they're going to look after us.
Yeah.
And you need to work out the way that works for you. So if it's you're feeling sick and unwell and you happily surrender into that process and go, yep, I'm going to let my body fight this out and just, I'm going to let it do its thing, step out of the way.
Yes.
Or you make that choice of going, I'm going to go and get something else. I'm going to put it in here and it's going to do the job for me and I'm just going to move on. Is there a price for that? Especially if it's something minor.
Yes.
Like, blocked nose or a headache that maybe only goes for, that isn't too overpowering. Don't get me wrong for a moment. If you have a migraine or something that is beyond the norm, then potentially you need that assistance.
And you get to decide. That's the point. I mean, I think people think the whole thing's really loaded and it's not. You've got to know what the effect is of all these things you put in your body.
And it's not one or the other. Sometimes you might go, you know what, I just feel I need some assistance that's external.
Yep.
Other times you might look at it and go, look, I'm cruising along. I'm going to beat this one out without any hassle.
Yeah, that's exactly right. The thing I really love about all of this is that the kids, and I know they would have done this earlier, as in like previous years, but with the fact that we had this unwavering belief in the way that we restitute in terms of our health, the kids weren't the least bit flustered by the fact that I was out for 2 days.
No.
So it was interesting because QK2's obviously been at my mum's, and my mum, bless her, gets all the natural stuff, but also is a big fan of popping to the GP as well. She just hasn't quite cut that umbilical cord, right? And I'm catching up with her today to collect QK2, and she was that distressed about the idea, well, not distressed, but she just held this tension about, would I be able to make an hour drive? I'm like, yeah, I can totally do that. So
is this when you were dropping off?
This is for collecting her today. And so Irie said, I'll be right. No probs. I got no issue coming to get her. Anyway, they call again today. But what was interesting was QK2 had this kind of just low-grade tension in her voice, just going, "Are you sure you're all right, Mum?" I'm like, 100%. Like, no probs whatsoever. As I said to you last night, I'm absolutely fine to come and get you. But for the most part, what I saw with our kids last week was there was no level of concern in terms of it was just like, yep, Mum's just doing what she needs to do, Dad is doing what he needs to do. And they just had this healthy attentiveness and active service. But when exposed to someone else who has a fear about it or a level of concern about it, or sort of just puts their own fear of discomfort onto you, it was a little bit contagious. And so that's the contagion with viruses, is how other people respond.
Yeah, well, then potentially
but not the virus
they
itself.
put into it as well.
That's right.
And I guess QK4 is a good one to come back to as well, because we've had the luxury of only having three of them around, and
Yep,
QK1.
75% of the children makes a big difference.
Well, yeah, and then QK1 was off doing his thing over the weekend, and 3 and 4 were sort of pretty narky at one another, and they had a little flare up, and then after they had the flare up, we spoke to both of them separately, and number 4 just went, "But I feel terrible. I feel sick. I said, "What are you going to do about it?" And he promptly went and put himself up on the day beds in the house, made himself comfortable, and then now, like after a day,
he's rested it out.
He rested himself, back to wellness, and
And
the difference in their behaviour to one another, changed immensely.
Yeah. Well, there was 2 things there. Firstly, we didn't just let him retire on the fact that he felt a bit crap, and therefore that was okay for his crappy behaviour. So that was considered separate, and we brought that to his attention. There's still a level of accountability where he needs to, still be kind or leave the environment. But more than that is the fact that this stuff is getting handed down to our kids, and we don't say don't go to Western medicine. We just don't demonstrate going there very often. I mean, really the only time we've used Western medicine in the last even 10 years is each time I dislocate a shoulder, and that's it. I've only done it twice, and I'm not planning on a third.
Oh, no, the hospital visiting there for chainsawing a finger.
Yeah, so we go for traumatic events.
Yeah, it's a tool that can be used as part of your wellness.
Yeah, but they don't see that modelled, and it's not like it's an avoidance. It's just it's not a primary or secondary part of our toolkit. It's a tertiary if needed. And so we triage based on that. We try the other things unless the situation clearly exceeds that. And for me, I'm really grateful they're getting that lesson, because I want them to know that their body will self-heal. And I also want them to be okay with discomfort, because that's contrast. And you then don't have the vanilla life. You get to understand that the body sometimes needs space so it can heal. And most importantly is these kids will grow up knowing that the oldest cell in their body is 7 years old.
That's a fascinating one to get your head around, isn't it?
I find it so freeing and so empowering. So when I say to people, because I reckon the first dislocated shoulder was, QK4 was young.
Very.
Yeah, still breastfeeding and stuff. So that must have been a good 8 years ago, wouldn't it be? And I had told, when I dislocated the other shoulder the second time, second occurrence, someone said to me, "Oh, dislocated shoulders, you never recover. I dislocated mine 20 years ago." And I said, "That's just not how the body works. That's a belief system." And I think I probably offended them, but that's okay, because the fact is that the oldest cell in my body is 7 years old. So the dislocated shoulder that I did 8 years ago, there are no cells in my body that were physically, materially impacted by that trauma. New cells have replaced it. So the only way I could continue to express symptoms of damaged cells is because I had put the belief system into my body.
Yep.
That is effing powerful. So pop that in your back pocket for next time you think about an injury being, or an ailment being older than 7 years, and say, is that true?
Or how can I be responsible for healing that?
That's right.
Heal the trauma.
That's right.
Heal the body.
Yeah. Love this conversation. Look at it. Look at what we can do at, 50, 60% energy. I'm going to come out guns a-blazing next time.
Look out.
Woo! The upgraded version of QuantiMama and QuantiPapa. All right, beautiful Quanta folks. Thank you for suffering through the tired voices, and just love this stuff. And please go find some inspirational people that will explain all this kind of stuff, the energetic body, the body's ability to self-heal, the way that we work in with nature. I'm thinking Zach Bush, and I've been nerding out on Eileen McCusick's stuff with, the etheric field, and there's so many juicy people out there that know this stuff. Anyway, until next time.
Bye.
Bye, beautiful Quanta folks. Beautiful Quanta folks. At QuantiMama, we have a mandate that we feel so passionate about. We want, and we are, raising the community's vibration and frequency and consciousness through parenting and birth experiences. Such incredible, transformational experiences that will shape you as a person and are the very fabric of life. Do you want to find out how to high vibe your experience even more? Then QuantiMama is your place. Head there for the High Vibe Birth course, ultimate preparation for birthing. Head there if you want to re-engage your child in the love of learning for the Take the Leap course, which is a deschooling course for parents. There's beautiful mind movies, and obviously this podcast is there, and we are here to support you. So head there for all the juice.